So in this video, I'll be talking more about the topic of burnout, where it's a topic that a lot of people don't even talk about or acknowledge that they have or they're experiencing, but I believe it is quite important to talk about. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because I myself am feeling the stress and I'm on the cusp of burning out. And that's from the job that I talked about in my first video actually. I've only been there around 2.5 months so far, and I'm definitely feeling the stress and the pressure from it.
And I almost forgot. I'm also gonna need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday too, okay? We lost some people this week, and we need to sort of play catch up. Thanks.
And I know that if I'm going through it, I know there may be other people who might be experiencing it as well, whether they've been at their job for a couple months or maybe even a couple of years now. But it's definitely a topic that should be discussed, but is not discussed enough. So in this video, I'll be talking more about what is burnout, the signs that you should be looking for, my experience with it so far, and what I've been doing, or things that might be able to help you out in terms of how to cope with it or how to kind of bounce back from that. So what is a burnout? According to Google, it is caused by emotional exhaustion, cynicism, or being ineffective at the work. And it is often a response to a negative or stressful work conditions. I believe there's a multiple stages to burnout, but the three that I've kind of experienced is the honeymoon phase, where you feel very excited about a new job, new team, or project that you be on. And when it comes to stress with that, you feel very excited, especially if you're traveling a lot and this is the first time you're traveling for work. It may be exciting in the beginning, but that is the honeymoon phase. Now the next stage I've experienced is more on the stressful side, where you start to feel the stress and the pressure of long hours, of deadlines and clients, and that begins to really take a toll in your health, whether it's physical or emotional conditions. And stress is part of an emotional response to a condition that you shouldn't be there for a long time. You know, I think when it comes to the biological side, stress was built in so that we know that we need to get out there. But if the conditions don't change from there onwards, you'll be moving on to the next stage, where it's the chronic stress that continues to really affect your health, whether it's sleeping or eating or just being able to live out your life and be productive at the workplace. And in a way, burnout is not good for anyone. It's not good for you because it's really affecting you, but it's also not good for the employer because you're not as productive when you are burnt out and don't feel motivated or stressed out and you can't get enough sleep and be able to do your job well and effectively. And if that chronic stress continues on, you'll be entering a stage of burnout. Burnout is not something that you could easily recover from. It doesn't take a weekend for you to just sleep and just bounce back from. It may take weeks or months or even years where you don't feel those signs anymore. And because of that, it's so important to divert from that path of getting worse and try to recover from that. In order for someone to resolve a problem, they need to first know that there is a problem. So I came up with a short list of signs that you may be experiencing when you're in the stage of stress, chronic stress, or even at the point of being burnt out. So personally for me, I'm not experiencing all of these signs, but many of them I am experiencing. Those signs may include having reduced performance or productivity, anxiety, detachment, low mood, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, and even the lack of creativity. And I believe burning out is not necessarily a mental illness, but I definitely do believe that it is a mental health issue. The hardest thing about burning out is just being able to admit that I am burning out. Even though I had these signs where I was feeling fatigue, anxiety, or reduced performance, I had a hard time admitting that I am feeling a lot of stress and getting to the point of being burnt out. Given that I am somewhat of a competitive person and who likes to kind of push myself mentally, Well, I guess I could blame toxic masculinity for that mindset. And because burnouts are more of a mental health issue and not anything that's really physical, it is quite difficult to gather validation from a third party. Anything like a sore throat or a fever, a doctor could see it or measure it so that you're able to see, okay, you have one of these conditions where you have a fever or a sore throat. But burnouts are quite different from that. I personally think that burnout is something that people have a hard time recognizing in others. And because of that, I think it is quite important for you to be honest and transparent with yourself in terms of what you're experiencing and what you're feeling at work. Even for myself, I caught myself saying, I've been at this job for only 2 months. How can you be burnt out? Because of that, I doubted that I was feeling this type of stress and emotions. And recognizing that was really half the battle. And it wasn't until I woke up one day where I felt a lot of anxiety, and I woke up with my heart racing. And prior to this job, I knew that I had a pretty low resting heart rate at around 45 beats per minute. And when I woke up, I had the urge to figure out, is my heart rate increasing at all at any point? It was pretty eye-opening for me, where I didn't really believe myself or validated the feelings I felt. But when I saw my resting heart rate going up in just a short amount of time, I knew that this was serious. And so I'm gonna try to see if I could look that up right now. This is the Fitbit app, and I'm gonna go into the full screen now. And so if I go into a year, I started this job around October, September, and so you could tell that over the course of a year, from March, where it's 45 beats per minute, and then it spiked up a little bit in May, and then went down to July at 45 beats per minute, and then it's been slowly increasing and increasing, and then up until recently in January, it came up to about 50 beats per minute. And this kind of scared me, where I've only been over here about 2 months, and if I'm feeling like my heart rate went up 5 beats per minute, then how much more can it go up if I continue to work here, or if I don't change anything about it? And so it was quite interesting because for me, I didn't validate the emotions and feelings I was going through, but as soon as I saw my heart rate, that's when I knew that, okay, like this is something quite serious. But had I not used my Fitbit, or had I not had it for the course of the year to kind of measure where I was before and where I am now, I may not have admitted that. And so because of I got to this point where I was able to at least tell myself that this is actually something that I'm going through, then in that case, I was able to take the next steps in terms of trying to combat my course of action to a full-out burnout. And because this is more of a mental thing, it is hard because I think many people say, hey, I don't want to push through this. I want to keep going non-stop. They have that Mamba mentality, and I need to push through pain and stress. But at a certain point, if you keep going, you're not going to get better from that. You know, it doesn't go away by itself. So I think it is so important for you to admit you are at a point that your mental health and your physical health is starting to worsen because of this. Let's say now you finally believe yourself that you are stressed out or getting to that point of burnout, and what can you do about it now? And I know I talked a lot about that this is a half the battle, and so what is the other half of it? And I could talk about more about my experience with this. And I think when it comes to this, you could think about a short-term as well as a long-term solution for this. Just as an analogy, let's say you have a house and it started raining and you have a roof that's starting to leak. You have to have the short-term solution where you have to have a bucket to gather up all the dripping that is coming through the cracks, and you need to have that short-term solution so that the water doesn't damage any other part of your house. But you also need the long-term solution where if you don't fix the roof, it will continue to leak and maybe create a bigger crack on the roof. And I'll go into the long-term solution of this first. But this is something that only you could answer yourself. And be honest with yourself. Do I want to continue to work in this field or this job? And if the answer is no and you don't want to continue to work there, then I think it is smart to start looking into other options that you may have in terms of career or your job. But if it's yes, that you want to continue to stay here because foreseeable future, that this is the most stable thing that you have for you and your family, which is totally okay. Then in that case, how can you make your work condition that you have currently as least stressful as possible? The answers to these questions will help you in your short-term solutions that you have. Now, let's say you do want to continue to stay there. Then I think the first step is for you to speak to your manager or your team about the amount of stress that you feel from the job. So recently I actually spoke to my project manager about it, letting her know that I am quite stressed out. And I also spoke to another senior member of the team and I let him know that I'm feeling a lot of pressure and stress from being in this project at such a fast-paced environment. And he acknowledged that this was a very aggressive project and something that's not very normal in the company. And so he wanted to make sure that I don't burn out as well. And so he really helped me out to figure out what I could do in terms of taking care of my health first, and then also try to see where I could contribute in the team. And I think in terms of speaking to your team, it helps in the long term because now your team member knows what you're going through, as well as if you need a day off or the weekend off or the night off. The next thing is for you to go through the basics of your physical health. That is to eat well, exercise, and sleep a proper amount for your body to recover. The next is very similar to the first solution, where I believe you should speak to someone that you trust. Now, the first time was more about your team, and I think that's very important for you to speak to your teammates about it and your manager. But I think it's also important for you to speak to your peers, your friends, the people that you trust in your family, and so forth. And through those conversations, you're able to really understand what your long-term goals are, like what is important to you. And this will also help you to feel validated and know that this is quite a serious condition that you need to address right away. And next is for you to make time for your hobbies, even if it's 15-20 minutes out of your day, whether it's a hike, maybe even reading or listening to music, watching a TV show that you really like. I think being able to disconnect from your job and really be engaged in your activities is very important for you to kind of create that separation. And the last thing is for you to slow down and take breaks throughout your day. This is also all the solutions that I'm reminding myself to do so that I don't get burnt out or stressed out about my job. I believe for myself that maybe it is just starting a new job and having that steep learning curve that I'm not used to yet. And so maybe if I give myself a couple more months, that I'll be used to it. But I also wouldn't be surprised that if this is something that I don't know if I want to continue doing for the foreseeable future. So that pretty much wraps up the video. For me, I think this is an important topic to talk about, especially since this is something that I'm currently going through. But I know that if this is something that I'm going through, there may be others who may need to hear this as well. So for myself, I really like talking about personal finance and self-improvement. But I know that when it comes to stress and being burnt out at work, it is very hard to enjoy the work that you're doing, make money and manage it, as well as try to improve yourself in various ways when you're experiencing a lot of stress at work and feeling like you're not motivated anymore. So I hope that this video was very helpful for at least one person. And let me know, like what you're going through, if this is something that you've experienced, or what are some ways that you try to combat and manage your stress, and making sure that you avoid being burnt out. And hopefully I see you in the next video. Peace.